when it comes to mixing, whether you're mixing your own song or you're mixing someone else's song, sometimes you're going to find yourself in a situation where you have to do a little bit more than strictly mixing in a very conventional sense of the word. And in this particular situation, that this is why I'm making this video, is that I'm also supposed to tune this vocal, and not only am I going to tune it, but I'm also going to comp it. And what comping means is that the singer delivered 4 takes of both the lead vocals and both the harmonies. I haven't listened to these yet, so I don't quite know what to expect. But what this means is that there's 4 takes, and in this take, maybe this part of the vocal will be good. From here, maybe this part will be good. From here, maybe this is gonna be good. Maybe here, this is not gonna be so good. And so, the job here is to find the best parts and combine them into one final channel that we are going to actually use to be mixed together with the instrumental stems. Same goes for the harmonies, and the ad-lib stem is here. And lately, I've been seeing more and more of this P for some reason. It's like the name of this. How do I rename it? Rename. Okay. So this whole thing comes from the. Is it Italian or maybe it's Latin? I'm not even sure, but it comes from this ad libitum saying, which pretty much in English means that freely, or I think that's the best I can translate it. And so when you're recording ad libs, you're not recording ad libs, but it's ad lib because it comes from the ad libitum, which means that this is the free something. And so these are gonna be called ad libs from now on, because I don't know, it's just weird. So yeah, how to do this the most efficient way. I'm talking about comping right now, and then we're going to get around to also tune it when we comped the take that we want to comp. And how to do this the most efficient way is that for the first time, I'm going to basically listen through each of these takes, and I might fast forward this video when you're seeing this in an edited form. By the way, I'm working on a song by Devs. By the time I'm publishing this video, it's probably going to come out as well. Point of the story is that the most efficient way to do this is it's very easy to recognize when something is bad. So what I'm going to do for the first time is I'm going to listen through the 4 takes, and I'm going to just take out what's not sounding good. If there's already something that's I'm 100% sure I'm not going to be keeping it, then these types of decisions are relatively easy to make. It's not as easy to decide what's the best, especially if you haven't heard the 4th take. Like it's pretty much impossible. But this is also so I'm getting a little bit more familiar with what each take has in it inside. So yeah, let's just do this. What's also sometimes worth comparing, if maybe the singer was a little bit lazier than what he's advertising, and these are copy pasted from here to here, from the first part of a song to the second part. But this is not the case here, so I was just checking, and sometimes it's worth taking a look at it, because then I would be doing twice the work for nothing. And in this particular first take, I've only found one part that was, I was pretty sure that I'm not going to be able to use that. And yeah, sometimes you get good, takes to begin with, and sometimes there are very obvious mistakes in certain takes that you can just very confidently say that I'm just not gonna be using that. So in this particular situation, there was only one. Let's go through the second one, and yeah, we'll go from there. I'm not particularly happy about this phrase in either one of the takes, which is far from optimal. But yeah, we're going to find a workaround for this. Also, I labeled another part with a different color earlier. What that really means is that it's I don't want to take it out just yet without hearing everything in context. But those parts I think those parts are not the best, from that particular channel. All these things mean really. So if I find a better one, I'm gonna do it. Use from another take, if this makes sense. And if I won't be able to find a better one, then I'm going to have to do some editing to these things. And this is also like the same situation here, is that this is probably like kind of I can kind of save it with some messing around. But when it comes to like these tuning and comping procedures, the more natural you can keep stuff, the better it's going to be later on when you actually need to do more processing to it. Because the more I have to use, for example, these like algorithms to solve situations, the less efficient the actual processing is going to be eventually. And of course, I'm talking about very minuscule details, and these, for 99.9% of people, this is never really going to be a huge concern. But I just want to keep the source material as high quality as possible. This is basically what I'm trying to do before we go on to any sort of other type of processing, like compression and EQing and all these things. In general, so far, my impression is about this second channel is that it sounds a little bit more like it's a better quality recording itself. The singer is like probably singing a little bit closer to the microphone. I hear more high-end detail in it. So it's in general it's a better take from a recording quality perspective. But obviously, if something is not sounding good, then it's just not sounding good. So because this phrase is repeating throughout the whole song, I want to find one or maybe two of this how far my love can go take like phrase. So I want to find the best sounding ones of these, and then basically I'm either going to just use one throughout the whole song, or maybe two if that I can find two that are like really good. You might think that variation in these types of situations is good, but I would argue that not so much. It's going to sound a little bit more consistent in terms of like I mean, we are talking about electronic music that's like also like a little bit more towards the popish direction. So it's being perfect is worth more than having more variation in situations like this. And yeah, I'm just going to be like essentially hunting for the best of these phrases. If I remember correctly, this was pretty good, around something around here, right? From the first one. This is maybe I'm remembering wrong, but this is what I'm just going to listen through all these takes and figure out the ones that I want to actually keep in the project. So now that obviously I would have needed to listen through all the 3 and the 4 as well, but at this point I have an idea of what this wants to be, and I just from one phrase to the next phrase, I want to go through the whole thing and try to once again for the first procedure, I'm eliminating what I don't like, and the parts that I don't think they are even contending to be the finalist. And yeah, from all the remaining takes, I'm going to try to then later on find the best one. And also just as a side note, basically, is that when you're comping, like obviously, so what I also mentioned earlier about the first or like the second take being a little bit brighter than the first, but then some other parts were the exact opposite. So I guess while he was singing it, he was moving. So the distance from the microphone was not consistent at all times, which is we could get into like recording practices, how to potentially deliver better vocal recordings, but I don't want to get too much detail into stuff like this right now. I just want to stick to comping. But for this reason, when you feel that there's like a little bit of a delivery differences between one take to another, then in situations like this, when I suspect that maybe the fourth, I mean, I not only suspect, but I know that in this part, because I've deleted everything else that they were not even good enough to keep. But when I know that this part is going to be used, then if my decision has to be made between one or the another, of keeping the same take, going on for the next phrase. To preserve consistency, I might use this second one, even if it's a little bit like even if it's not as good as the second one in certain situations. But this is just as a thought that I had, that maybe it's worth explaining, because later on what might happen is that you'll see me deleting this second one, when in fact you might think that wait, wasn't this better? But in a situation like this keeping the consistency of the vocal itself, from one phrase sounding in terms of its recording quality and the recording delivery, being coming from the same take and being extremely similar, this might in some cases worth more than using a better take from another situation. But this is extremely contextual, so I can't really tell whether this is going to happen or not. I'm only going to make these decisions later. And it's also important to note here that I'm not listening for tuning issues or not. I'm strictly listening for delivery, because tuning is going to happen once we comp the vocal. Right now, I'm pretty much only interested in things in terms of its delivery sounding as good as it possibly can sound. Yeah. So once again, it's going to be between 1 and 3. Now, although what I just mentioned about not looking for tuning differences, while I'm going, when stuff is sounding like something like this, I cannot really properly pitch correct stuff like this. So even if the delivery would have been perfect here, this would still be avoided with a delete button, whatever I wanted to do, because this is pretty much unfixable without the fix being super obvious that it was digitally done. And yeah, that's not fixing and tuning, comping, all these, especially for vocals, which are very which are going to be very much at the forefront of the mix. You don't want to make fixes obvious, like, and especially not digital fixes, because that's just going to sound artificial, and that's like I don't think that's good. That there are songs which are so you can play with this in a sense that you can make sure that everyone hears that something was edited digitally, but at that point this is kind of like going to be like about a joke of the song. It's not really going to be like something that's supposed to be taken seriously or something. So it's if you do this in an obvious way where it's very apparent and it's on purpose, that's a different situation. But here this song is supposed to be serious, so we want to also treat it as such, and not and find ways to not make editing sound obvious at all. So this is why stuff like this I just won't be able to correct. This is kind of a tough situation, because even though I like this third one the best, the ending, it's a little bit abrupt compared to, for example, this first one. It's much smoother, and so yeah, I think we just have to say goodbye to this one, even though this is the one that, in terms of vocal delivery, this is the most articulated and the most like it's just sounding a little bit better than all the other ones, but the ending is kind of ruining it. I'm not sure I'm going to keep it like this, just to, because sometimes doing stuff like this can work, although in many cases you want to, once again, this is just because of consistency, like in many cases you want to make these cuts between the phrases, not inside the phrases, because once again, sometimes this might sound good, but in I would say 80, maybe even 90% of the time, this is once again just going to be way too obvious that it was edited. Still don't know. Yeah, it's just something different. So yeah, unfortunately, that ending is kind of ruining this phrase for this third one to be kept. Although I'm going to reverse my decision here, and I'm just going to be keeping it, and then let's move on to the other ones, and then we'll decide about this later. There's a little bit of a space here. I could copy from one of these to another without hopefully being without being too obvious about it. But here, once again, like these type of pitch issues, when it's when the singer is continuously going to another note, well, you know, it's kind of like legatoing a little bit, but not really directly that. Like in these situations, once again, it's super hard to edit the pitch without it being audible. So it kind of ruins the second take. I'm just going to take it out. For example, here it sounds good when I combine the two takes into one take. And yeah, as I've explained, sometimes this is going to work, but in most cases, it's not really going to be working all that well. So it's better to to do the stuff, these changes from one take to another in between phrases if possible. But here, you know, the first take and the second take was similarly sounding enough so that there's no audible like tonality difference. And yeah, also there was a little bit of a gap so that it's also not happening inside of a of something that's, you know, that would make it obvious.
Be a shining armor.
Once again, it has these inside pitch issues which cannot be corrected.
Be a shining armor.
So this fourth one, when it has some of these inside clicks, those are also super hard to get rid of. It's kind of possible in certain situations, but I don't think it's worth the trouble because it was not sounding as good as the second one anyways. When we are going to get around to actually mix the song and process these things, I'm going to like probably emphasize these T's a little bit more because they get a little bit lost sometimes. But yeah, this one is something that I'm going to be worrying about later. Now it's time to make the decisions, and to do this, I'm going to create a new channel, and I'm going to be copying over what I find the best takes of every single phrase.